Greetings everyone, I hope you are well and you are having a lovely day. Welcome to this new video, an exciting new video where I want to present a challenge to every Seventh-day Adventist. And those who successfully pass this challenge will receive 10,000 Swiss francs from me. That's equivalent to $10,000. You will receive $10,000, the first person who passes this challenge, because I think there might be a bit of work involved. And I want to make sure I reward you for your hard work in doing this, because I believe it will help a lot of people. Now, following my departure from the Seventh-day Adventist Church back in January 2023, I have received an intense amount of hate, criticism, pretty much every day. From that day I made that video, I wake up to comments, people telling me I'm deceived, I'm lost, I'm a snake, I'm a Jesuit plant, I'm from the devil, you name it. It's like constant attacks. Simply because I no longer believe that the Sabbath falls on a Saturday, but I believe the Sabbath can only be found through observing the signs in the sky, through the lunar solar calendar. Now let that sink in. I am the devil. I am so evil. I am so deceived simply because I do not trust in Pope Gregory's calendar. A calendar that comes from God's arch enemy. A calendar that comes from a power whom the Bible specifically warns us will change times and laws. Because I don't trust in that calendar, but I now trust in God's created works, the moon, I am now seen as the devil, evil, satanic. Word out on the street is stay away from grace, as she may corrupt you with her doctrine. Now bear in mind that all these attacks are coming from a church that claims religious liberty, that says they will be persecuted for keeping the Saturday Sabbath. But the moment someone publicly changes their belief, the amount of hate that person receives is pretty worrying and concerning. Now, I was born and raised Catholic, and when I later changed to the Seventh-day Adventist Church, my family, my friends, they were not happy with it. But all in all, their message was, I'm not happy with you changing from being Catholic because you've been raised Catholic, all your life. But if that's what you believe, if that's what makes you happy, then go forward. However, with many of the Seventh-day Adventist friends I had, mainly those who truly believe Ellen White is a prophet who believes she's infallible, for them it's now, don't talk to Grace, stay away from Grace, she might corrupt you. And let me make it clear that I'm not like that. I believe in freedom of speech. If you don't believe what I believe, doesn't mean that I hate you, you're still my friend. But for many of these people, I've crossed the line. It's like, stay away from Grace. So it's quite worrying and alarming, because I've had other individuals come to me telling me that they're scared, to say what they believe because they're worried they might receive the same treatment. And I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. I think everybody should be free to worship according to the dictates of their conscience, even if you disagree or you think that's wrong. At the end of the day, God will judge. But with these individuals, it's no. If you don't believe what we believe, or if you don't believe in Ellen White, then you're lost and stay away from us. So, it's quite disturbing and quite worrying. Now, when I made my first video explaining why I was leaving the Seventh-day Adventist Church, I don't think I was rude. I did not attack anyone. I just simply stated my reasoning why I don't think Saturday Sabbath is biblical. And my intention after that video was just to give up YouTube and just continue my faith privately. But I received so much hate comments on that video to the point where I had to turn the comments off, and I rarely ever do that. But within the midst of those hate comments, there were a few genuine people who were interested, and they were saying, you know what, Grace, explain more, that I really want to know more. So I continued to share videos, and I'm so glad that I did, because through that, a lot of people have now come to understand this truth. Groups have been formed, and many are now going out and preaching this message. However, despite that, I still receive a lot of hate from Adventists telling me that I'm deceived. And I really believe that these people believe that I'm deceived, that I'm lost. I really believe these people think they are like doing the right thing, trying to warn people about me because they really like believe in this Saturday Sabbath. So I was thinking, Lord, how can I reach these people? How can I let these people know that I'm not deceiving people? I believe this is biblically accurately true. It can be proven from the Bible and history. How can I get people to see this? How can I draw attention to this issue? And then I remembered when I was Seventh-day Adventist researching Rome, I remember Rome offered a challenge to the Protestant denominations. They said they would give, I think it was a certain amount of money, I've forgotten the figure, if anyone could prove that Sunday is the Sabbath. And then they went on to go and said they changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. And Adventists usually gloat and say, see, Rome tell you they've changed the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday. They know this, the Sabbath is on Saturday. However, I now want to take it a step further. I don't believe Saturday is the Sabbath. I think Rome was playing with that idea. I want to take it a bit further, and I also want to offer my challenge, Miss Lady Gracie's challenge. And my challenge is that I will give anyone, the first person, 10,000 francs who can produce a video detailing to me using the Bible and a concordance that Saturday is the Sabbath. That the Adventist logic, which comes from Ellen White, is that when God created the world in 6 days and then he rested on the Sabbath, the seventh day, that cycle has continued down to this generation, and that cycle meets today's Saturday. So they say God worked 6 days, then he rested the seventh day, and then the cycle has continued, the weekly cycle, 6 day Sabbath, 6 day Sabbath, and they say it's unbroken. However, we need to remember that when God created the seventh day Sabbath, that day, announced it as his rest, he didn't call it Saturday. It was just the seventh day. But the assumptions based on the calendar that we have today, and many don't know any better, they don't know the history, I'll talk about that in a moment, they think it's been passed down to us on Saturday. And there's a serious commandment, the fourth commandment. God tells us to remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. And if you're not doing that, which is on the Saturday, then you're going to be lost. You receive the mark of the beast, So this is quite a serious doctrine here. And I'm here to present to you that I don't believe that's true. However, many Adventists do. So what I want, which would really be helpful to me, is if you could just produce a video proving this to me. And within this video, I want these 3 key points to be addressed biblically with a Bible, KJV Bible, and a concordance. And these are the 3 points. Now, the first point I want addressed is that I want you to demonstrate to me in video format on YouTube that Christ's death in AD 31 falls on a Friday using the Millerite rules of Bible interpretation. Now, it's a well-known fact that Christ died on the 14th day of Nisan, the Passover. That's 14th day from the new moon, because that's how the feasts were celebrated. They were based on the new moon. Even Ellen White says that Christ died on the 14th day of Nisan under a full moon. Not that I care what Ellen White says, but I just use that because I know many Seventh-day Adventists today take Ellen White's writings first over the Bible. But just to let you know that your prophet also confirms this, that Christ died on the 14th day of Nisan under a full moon. Now, the moon is fixed in its course. The Bible tells us that the moon is a faithful witness. And you can go back in time to find out when the new moon was in AD 31. And you can also go back in time using Pope Gregory's calendar, like count the days back, to line the days, the modern days of the week that we have today, because bear in mind that didn't exist in the times of Christ. Nevertheless, you can go back and count the days back. And when many have attempted to do this, even many Adventist theologians and scholars, they find that Christ's death doesn't fall on a Friday. it actually falls on a Tuesday, maximum Wednesday, you know. Now, some may say, oh, but maybe they're doing the count wrong. Well, they are doing the count based on the principles that were used to establish 1844, October 22nd, 1844. That's the heart of the Seventh-day Adventist message. Remember the 70-week prophecy is linked with the 2,300-day prophecy. So if you go back, you know, just do the counts, you know, many have done it. You find that the crucifixion doesn't fall on a Friday. It's actually Tuesday or Wednesdays. And a committee was formed. This was in 1935, an Adventist committee to examine these dates, and also in 1995. And they thought they could easily debunk the lunar Sabbath. But when they were trying to pinpoint the dates regarding the crucifixion, they came into problems. Many knew there was an issue here. So they tried to hide away what really went on, saying that the people cannot handle this truth. Now I'll play a little clip from a video where they talk about it, and I'll link 2 videos below where they talk about this in great detail.
The 1938 committee studied the crucifixion date and found a problem. On November 7, 1938, a committee was formed to study the subject. And it is important to note that from the first, the focus covered the true day for Day of Atonement, 1844, and the correct day for the crucifixion. The two are inseparably entwined because when the principles of lunar solar calendation used to determine the Day of Atonement for 1844 were applied to the year of crucifixion, it is undeniably that there is a problem. The 1938 committee was initially called the Adventist Research Committee. It consisted of Adventist luminaries, well respected for their theological knowledge. Dr. Leroy Froome was elected to chair the meeting. Dr. Lynn Harper Woods served as secretary. The other members were Dr. M.L. Andreessen, professor, M.E. Kern, professor, W. Homer Teasdale, professor, Albert Wehrlein, and Elder F.C. Gilbert. These were the experts. And after the initial report, a new member was added to the committee, and that's Miss Grace Almaden, because she has studied the astronomical aspects of these dates for a number of years. And the research they did explaining precisely how the Millerites arrived at October 22 for Day of Atonement, as well as the broad outlines of lunar solar calendation, is very good and provides a solid foundation for understanding these issues. However, when they attempted to fit the Passover crucifixion on Abib 14 of the biblical calendar to Friday on a Julian calendar, they ran into irreconcilable facts. If one assumes that the modern week has come down uninterrupted from creation, then by counting in a continuous weeks backwards, one would be able to align Abib 14 with the Friday in the year of crucifixion, AD 31, as understood by the SDAs from the prophecies of Daniel. However, when you counted backwards all the way, when that was done, you arrived at a Wednesday, and at the very latest a Thursday for Abib 14, the Passover crucifixion. And you cannot place Abib 14 on a Friday in AD 31, as we were all taught that Yeshua died on a Friday. Also, here's another quote from Great Controversy, page 399. The crucifixion occurred on the Passover, the 6th day of the week, and the 14th day of the lunar month. Well, we know the calendar I just showed you there was not the calendar of that time. They just placed it back to there, counted all the way back, and they came up with a Wednesday. But at this time, the Julian calendar at the time of Yeshua had an 8-day week, as Brother Pete just explained, and it was designated by the days A through H. There were no weekdays named Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. None of those weekdays existed at the time of the crucifixion.
And I urge you to do your research and to study it. You can trace the dates back, and many come into problems. So what would be very helpful to me in your video, for those who are saying Saturday is the Sabbath, it's a continuous weekly cycle, please produce this video showing your calculations how this works. So also remember, we know that the next day after Christ's crucifixion was a Sabbath, because the Bible clearly tells us that. And after that, we know was the first day of the week. The Bible tells us this. So first day of the week was after the Sabbath. You can see that in the Bible, but it doesn't say Sunday. Many Adventists try to say, oh, see Sunday. It doesn't say that. It's just counting based, what I believe, on the lunar solar calendar. But please, guys, put this video in format and address this. It will be very helpful. Now, the second point I would like to have addressed in video format are the Jewish laws of postponement. I'm not sure many are aware of this particular point of history, but back in the times of Constantine's son, the Jews were under immense persecution, severe persecution, and they were being scattered. So in order to preserve their worship style, they had to make some changes. And these changes were brought about by the last member of the Sanhedrin. His name is Hillel II. You can research him, you can study it. And what he did, he changed their calendar from it being observable through the signs of the sky. So before, the Jews, when the new moon came, they'll look at it for the sky, and when they saw the new moon, then they will start the year. Because they were being scattered, the Sanhedrin was about to be extinct. What he had to quickly do to preserve the nation, he fixed their calendars. He fixed the calendars, which meant that the new moon was no longer observable, through the signs of the sky, but he made it based on calculations, of when the new moon can be given. And in the process of this, he also fixed the Sabbath, which was once originally dependent on the new moon. Now, the Jews tell you this in their writings. He moved that to it becoming now dependent on Pope Gregory's calendar, just to make it easier for them. So the Sabbath now falls every Saturday. And in order to successfully accommodate this change, because they've now brought in this new sort of calendar, they're using the new moon for the feast, and now they're using Pope Gregory's calendar for the Sabbath. To make it work effectively, what they had to introduce were the Jewish laws of postponement. In other words, if certain dates, like for example, if the Feast of the Tabernacle or High Feast of the Tabernacle could fall on a Saturday, they would postpone the giving of the new moon so the dates don't coincide. Now, I'll quickly play a video where they explain this in great detail so you can understand this.
Declaring the new month by observation of the new moon, and the new year by the arrival of spring, can only be done by the Sanhedrin. In the time of Hillel II, the last president of the Sanhedrin, the Romans prohibited this practice. Hillel II was therefore forced to institute his fixed calendar, thus in effect giving the Sanhedrin's advance approval to the calendars of all future years. With Hillel's new calendar system, distant communities would no longer have to wait for messengers from the president of the Sanhedrin to know when a new month had started. Each community would be able to determine for themselves when a new month began and when a 13th month was to be added. This change necessitated another: rules of postponement. Rules of postponement are a set of regulations for controlling when the new moon can be declared. Under certain conditions, the rules of postponement delay the declaration of new moon for an additional day. These rules of postponement are: 1. The Jewish New Year, Feast of Trumpets, may not fall on Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday. 2. If the new moon, or molad, for the 7th month falls on Sunday, Wednesday, or Friday, the new moon is postponed until the following day. 3. If the molad of the 7th month in a common year occurs on Tuesday at 3 a.m. and 2:04/1080 parts or later, the new moon is postponed until Thursday. 4. In a common year following a leap year, if the molad of the 7th month occurs after 9 a.m. and 589/1080 parts on a Monday morning, new moon is postponed until Tuesday. The change of the weekly Sabbath from the lunisolar calendar to Saturday is clearly implied by the needed rules of postponement which, prior to Hillel's fixing of the calendar, had been unnecessary. According to the Jews themselves, the new moon is still, and the Sabbath originally was, dependent upon the lunar cycle. When both the Sabbath and the annual feasts are calculated on the lunisolar calendar, rules of postponement are unnecessary. It is only when the yearly feasts are calculated by one calendar and the weekly Sabbath is calculated by yet another, there are conflicts requiring rules of postponement. Without the rules of postponement, the annual feasts come into conflict with Saturday. For example, if Feast of Trumpets, new moon for the 7th month, were to fall on a Sunday, the last day of Feast of Tabernacles would fall on a Saturday. This would conflict with the traditional observance for the last day of the feast. Hence the need for the first and second rules of postponement. The third rule of postponement ensures the common year in question would not be longer than 355 days. The fourth rule of postponement guarantees a common year following a leap year is not shorter than 383 days. This fixed calendar is highly regimented. There are exactly 14 different patterns that the Hebrew calendar year may take, distinguished by the length of the year and the day of the week on which Rosh Hashanah falls. Because the rules are complex, a pattern can repeat itself several times in the course of a few years and then not recur again for a long time. But the Jewish calendar is known to be extremely accurate. It does not lose or gain time as some other calendars do. This was an act of survival by Hillel too. It was made in response to the brutal persecutions of Constantine's son Constantius. With his own hand, the Patriarch destroyed the last bond which united the communities dispersed throughout the Roman and Persian empires with the Patriarchate. He was more concerned for the certainty of the continuance of Judaism than for the dignity of his own house, and therefore abandoned those functions for which his ancestors had been so jealous and solicitous. The members of the Sanhedrin favored this innovation. When Hillel II fixed the calendar, he effectually gave permission to the Jews to worship on Saturday for all future time. Only he, as president of the Sanhedrin, could do this. Today, over 1600 years later, the action of Constantine and its resulting reaction by Hillel II are still impacting hundreds of millions of people around the world. Because of these two men: 1. Catholics worship on Sunday in honor of the resurrection. This is in accordance with the Act of Constantine, which changed the observance from a luni-solar calculated Passover to the pagan solar calculated Easter. 2. Jews worship on Saturday because Talmudic law justifies the act of keeping one day in 7 when one does not know when the true Sabbath falls. 3. Most Protestants join with Catholics in worshiping on Sunday, the first day of the modern Gregorian week, assuming it is the day of the resurrection. 4. Saturday Sabbath-keeping Protestants worship on Saturday because it is the 7th day of the modern week, and they assume, since the Jews worship on Saturday, it must be the biblical Sabbath. 5. Muslims, likewise, honor the pagan papal Gregorian calendar keeping by going to mosque for prayers on Friday. It is not possible to find the true seventh-day Sabbath using the modern Gregorian calendar. This solar calendar is nothing more than a pagan method of time calculation. The early Julian calendar was established by pagans for pagans. It was officially adopted for ecclesiastical use at the Council of Nicaea. It was later adjusted by Jesuit astronomer Christopher Clavius at the request of Pope Gregory XIII, hence the name Gregorian calendar. Clavius confirmed the Julian calendar, and thus the Gregorian calendar that comes from it, is founded on paganism and has no connection whatsoever to the biblical calendar. In his explanation of the Gregorian calendar, Clavius admitted when the Julian calendar was accepted as the ecclesiastical calendar of the Church, the biblical calendar was rejected. The Catholic Church has never used that Jewish rite of celebrating the Passover, but always in its celebration has observed the motion of the moon and sun, and it was thus sanctified by the most ancient and most holy pontiffs of Rome, but also confirmed by the First Council of Nicaea. The most ancient and most holy pontiffs of Rome, here spoken of, refer to the pagan college of pontiffs of which Constantine, as Pontifex Maximus, was the head. Emperor Constantine desired unity. He achieved this goal through ecumenism and outlawing the use of the biblical calendar for remembering the death of Yahushua. Hillel too desired the physical survival of Judaism. He achieved his goal by compromising with paganism and modifying the biblical calendar. Constantine's action and its accompanying reaction by Hillel has led to the assumption by multitudes that Saturday is the biblical Sabbath and Sunday is the day on which the Savior was resurrected. Thus, Christians and Jews alike have calculated their worship days using pagan solar calendars, neglecting the true Sabbath of Yahweh. None who desire to worship the Creator on His holy Sabbath will calculate worship days by this abomination of desolation that dishonors Yahweh and desolates the soul. Only the lunisolar calendar of creation can pinpoint when the true Sabbath occurs. Lay aside the traditions of man. Accept only the word of Yah. And worship Him by His ordained method of timekeeping.
So you see, changes have been made, and it's even documented in their history. Many Seventh-day Adventists say, oh, the Jews would never lose the Sabbath. It's so important to them. Well, there you have it. It's changed, you know. And I hope you see that the two calendars don't work. It's not in the Bible. There's no laws of postponement. These are man-made laws. If you go to the Bible, if you look into my studies, you would see, read the Bible first, Leviticus 23. The Sabbath and the feast, they all hanged on one calendar. There was no two calendars which they ran side by side. It's not biblical. That's just a myth and a theory. Everything was dependent on the new moon, and there was wisdom in that because God knew He created the earth. There can't be no continuous weekly cycle based on the movement of the sun and the stars. You're just going to get problems. And I'll delve more into this as we enter into the third point. And the third point is the Samoa issue. And I have spoken about this in previous presentations. But basically what happened was in Samoa, there was a dateline change shift where they removed one of the days, I believe it was Thursday, and they shifted the days back. So the Saturday that they were previously keeping, the Sabbath day, the Saturday, it now falls on a Sunday. You know, so in order to maintain this continuous weekly cycle, many of the churches have refused to go with the change. In other words, go back, but they've continued to maintain that old Saturday, which is now Sunday, which causes a big problem because if you are worshipping on the Sunday, which is now called Sunday, you're worshipping along the other churches as well, you know, the Catholics and so on. So the question is how can you give the Sunday law message, the heart of the Adventist message regarding a Sunday law when you are worshipping on the same days? It's confusion. But among this, there are some who realize that this is a problem. So what they've done, they've shifted back. So they've changed the day. They've gone back to the Friday, what was once Friday, but what's now called Saturday. But then by doing this, they have broken this continuous cycle. So there's a bit of confusion here, but I'll play the clip so you can see the dilemma.
It's over 8 months now since Samoa did the time warp and shifted the international dateline.
And for the majority, it's been a welcome change. But the moving of the datelines divided the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Samoa.
As Tangalo Tele Osonia Kwesene reports, it's an issue that remains unresolved.
At the tail end of 2011, Samoa took a step into the future by shifting the dateline and losing a day to realign themselves with major trading partners. By shifting the dateline and losing a day to realign themselves with major trading partners New Zealand and Australia, a move promoted as better for business. But it's not all plain sailing. The international dateline shift has divided one church.
Today is Saturday. Normally, this church would be humming. But because of the date change, the Seventh-day Adventist Church has moved everything to Sunday.
After years of being known as the church that worships on Saturday, Seventh-day Adventists in Samoa are now worshipping on Sunday.
We believe that for 120 years, we have been worshipping on this day, the seventh day of the week. We are not worshipping according to the names of the days, but we're worshipping because and according to the sequence of the days of the week. So now in Samoa, the seventh day falls on the Sunday.
And I would say that this guy, I believe he is correct here. You know, he is sticking to the continuous cycle. He's been obedient to Ellen White. But the problem is like, how can you give the Sunday law? So I'll continue playing the clip. And in this clip, I want to interject an Adventist pastor's thoughts on this, because he also talks about this. His name is Isaac Olachunde. He's known as the Sunday law preacher. And he gives his thoughts on this. And bear in mind that this is a prominent Seventh-day Adventist pastor who studied in the schools of theology. Note what he says regarding the issue.
But not all members of the church agree with the mission's assessment that they should worship on Sunday to keep the sequence of 7 days intact.
There was part of me that just couldn't go against it. And I have a lot of friends that went the other way, good friends, and you know, that's probably one of the hardest parts. But for me, I could never worship other than how he wanted us to worship on a day when they're holy.
O se lau lua se furu tau sanga, o kako kausir sa paki esko ngai le ku. Ele mawhai a koe li liu le ku se aso. Le mawhai.
As a paramount chief in the village of Lauli'i, Tuailoa's standing in the village is being slighted. His choice to worship on Saturday means he now travels out of his village to attend church.
Malaman kaya o sapat. Ai vai men mapong. O alu ko ai lo sui se farisai lo ku. Como o le me ele fe ngofie, ele te ngofie te. Lo ualu e kau sui se farisai ke lo ku. A ole si makai longa o la wi. E kau ngai farisai mau tu e ta puai.
No longer able to meet in the SDA churches they're familiar with, makeshift shelter, even in the rain, is a price they're happy to pay for the stand they've made.
You know, we might be doing it tough in the rain, but we're enjoying God, and we've got no debt to pull us down as well.
Meanwhile, on Sunday morning, the Seventh-day Adventist mission springs to life as worshippers arrive for services. Across Apia and Mangiangi, Pastor Willie Soloff is preaching to the converted. This congregation clearly behind the mission's decision to worship on Sunday.
Now, let me ask you a question. If this had happened here, what would you do? Understand this right here. The international dateline is strategically put in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, but they say the international dateline could be put anywhere on the earth. If that happened here, to where they just did something like that, what in the world are we going to do? On the safe side, I would not worship on Sunday, period. I understand why they're doing that on Sunday, because they're saying that, you know, that's really Saturday. I still ain't going to do it. Am I right? I still not going to do it. So what should you do? What should they do? Or what would you do if you were living there? Somebody said, I'm going to move out of Samoa. I would move. I would move. I would just leave, because I'm not going to be going through that confusion. Let me tell you this. I thought about this. I thought about it. I realized that let me ask you, who's right? The mainstream church, was they right doing it on Sunday, or were those who were worshiping under that little tent right? Those under that tent were doing it right. You know why? The reason why they did the international dateline change was to align themselves with New Zealand and Australia for business purposes. It was a business decision, and not with the United States anymore, because that's way far. If you ever anybody ever flown to Australia and back? I have. It is the land down under. And let me tell you this right here. Which day is the Sabbath in Samoa based on the date change? The same day as it is in Australia. So you just do it on Saturday. But what happens is that we was talking about this the other day, and people, I'm just addressing this because people have been sending me this all throughout the week, so I guess it's time for us to deal with it. I'm using this point to make a real point. Are you ready for this? Hold on.
Seventh-day Adventist for a reason. 7 days is we count from the first day to the seventh day. So when we missed that Friday that the government changed, we didn't count that as the sixth day, but we count Saturday as the sixth day, and then seventh, the Sunday, which is the seventh. And that's how we go to church on Sunday now.
They're not confusing. I think that's the recipe.
That's confusion, isn't it?
He keeps on encouraging and reminding us that we are in the same Sabbath.
And for that reason, I don't fault them for doing it. I wouldn't do it on Sunday. I can understand their line of reasoning and stuff like because of the change of the date and stuff. Now, they were confused, right? So they just want to be in alignment with what they've been always doing. But brothers and sisters, let me tell you this: for me, I'll be under that canopy in the monsoon season. Have mercy on Saturday.
I think that's the reason that no one is confused or wants to get out of the Sabbath.
Satan has done his very worst.
The church still preaches the same biblical message, even though they're doing it on what's now called Sunday in Samoa.
Elea se swinga ole fe au yaso umavai, ma le fe au olo
I mean, he said, and I believe him, but how do you preach the third angel's message about the Sunday law? If the Sunday law was to happen, they're probably going to enforce it on the day that they now call Sunday. See what I'm saying?
8 months after the dateline shift, the Seventh-day Adventist Church in Samoa remains split. As friends and family stand on both sides of the divide, more groups have decided not to worship on Sunday.
At the end of the day, they have to make their own choice according to the leading of God. But the church still trying all its endeavors and efforts just to maintain its membership within the church.
I think that God is working.
So note that he says he would go back, to, he will move to Saturday. He will join that little tent. But by him doing that, isn't he breaking this continuous weekly cycle? So this is the confusion here. And you breaking the continuous weekly cycle. Now he goes on to give this reason here, saying that he's in line with America or whatever. But what he fails to understand is that this is not the only change that's been made to the dateline change, to the calendars. There's been several changes to the calendar where they've switched days and moved days and so on and so on. So I'm going to play this clip where this ministry, I believe, beautifully explains this. And I believe this destroys the Adventist logic regarding Saturday, Sunday, mark of the beast, because it truly doesn't make any sense. So friends, please throw away your biases and listen carefully to what the speaker is saying here now. This is so important.
2. SDAs and the International Dateline. Cognitive dissonance at its best. The Seventh-day Adventist Church has been blessed with a wealth of scriptural truth. One area in particular is their recognition of the tremendous importance of keeping the Sabbath day holy. Sadly though, SDAs have adamantly rejected the fullness of the three angels' messages and the increasing light of biblical calendation. Consequently, they continue to blindly cling to the lopsided theology of exalting the papal Gregorian Saturday, as determined by the man-made IDL, while professing Scripture as the sole rule of faith and duty. Seventh-day Adventists ardently claim that Saturday is the biblical Sabbath, the seal of Yah, and that Sunday is the pagan day of worship, the mark of the beast. Yet they ignore the fact that it is the man-made dateline alone that separates the 2 days. They recognize the importance of keeping the Sabbath and the grave error of exalting the pagan sun day. Yet they have no problem allowing man to determine when the seventh day ends and the following day begins via the International Dateline. This makes no sense. The only difference between the seal of Yah and the mark of the beast in SDA theology is the man-made dateline. If you are an SDA, we humbly implore you to stop and think about this for a moment. If the final conflict is to be as simple as Saturday versus Sunday, how can it be that the only difference between these 2 days is an imaginary line cooked up by a committee of men in Washington, D.C.? And if Saturday is the ancient Sabbath of Scripture, why is it governed exclusively by an 1884 invention? These are serious questions that every truth seeker must address. 3. On the move. The necessity of a calendar dateline was popularized by 13th century geographers who marveled how a circumnavigator would paradoxically gain or lose a date depending on his travel direction. Various popes and empires subsequently declared calendar datelines in accordance with their needs. The International Dateline has been relocated for convenience several times since its inception. Not only that, but even the unofficial makeshift line that preceded the IDL was moved on at least 2 occasions. The Philippines. In 1844, the Philippines, along with the Mariana Islands, Guam and the Caroline Islands, removed Tuesday, December the 31st from its calendar, shifting the make-believe dateline to the east. Consequently, what had previously been recognized as Friday became Saturday, and what had previously been recognized as Saturday became Sunday. SDAs in the Philippines disregard this conundrum entirely, though, by worshipping on the new Saturday and boasting, "Our Sabbath is the New Testament Sabbath." By default, SDA theology demands that those who exalt what had previously been Saturday, the new Sunday, are in danger of receiving the mark of the beast. This is both illogical and inconsistent. How can an honest truth seeker continue to cling to the erroneous doctrine of a continuous weekly cycle in the face of such clear evidence to the contrary? Alaska. When the United States purchased Alaska from Russia in 1867, the makeshift line was moved to the west. Consequently, Alaska observed 2 Fridays in a row. At the instigation of U.S. Secretary of State William Seward, the United States Senate approved the purchase of Alaska from Russia for $7,200,000 on April 9, 1867, and the United States flag was raised on October 18th of that same year, now called Alaska Day. Coincident with the ownership change, the de facto international dateline was moved westward, and Alaska changed from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. Therefore, for residents, Friday, October the 6th, 1867 was followed by Friday, October the 18th, 1867. 2 Fridays in a row because of the dateline shift. This means that what had previously been recognized as Saturday became Friday, and what had previously been recognized as Sunday became Saturday. Think about it. Saturday Sabbatarians in Alaska today worship on what was Sunday only 150 years ago. Again, the ramifications for the SDA Church are huge because their theology insists that those who persist in Sunday observance will ultimately bear the mark of the beast. How can this be when only 150 years ago their day of worship, Saturday, was Sunday? Integrity demands that Yahweh's faithful acknowledge the egregious fallacy of making heaven's holy days subordinate to a man-made dateline. Samoan Islands and Tokelau. In 1892, the IDL was moved to the west of the Samoan Islands. This was achieved by observing Monday, July the 4th for 2 consecutive days in the islands. 119 years later, in 2011, Samoa shifted the IDL back to the east by removing Friday, December the 30th from its calendar. Tokelau, a nearby island belonging to New Zealand, made the transition as well. Today, the IDL passes between the islands of Samoa and American Samoa. The majority of SDAs in Samoa now worship on the new Sunday because, they say, the continuous weekly cycle is what matters. Yet they ignore the fact that the 2011 adjustment was only returning Samoa to the calendar week it was observing prior to 1892. This is utterly nonsensical and again makes clear the fallacy of claiming that the modern week has cycled continuously and without interruption since creation. Kwajalein Atoll. In 1993, Kwajalein, one of the Marshall Islands, removed Saturday, August the 21st from its calendar, causing the IDL to be moved to the east. This brought Kwajalein into harmony with the other islands, which up to that point had been on a different day. Eastern Kiribati. In 1995, Kiribati moved the IDL to the east for administrative convenience. Prior to this, the Republic of Kiribati was divided by the dateline. 4. Modern Jews admit a problem. Within modern Judaism, there are 4 major opinions regarding where the dateline should be. 1. 90 degrees east of Jerusalem. 2. 180 degrees east of Jerusalem. 3. Mid-Pacific, closely resembling the international dateline. 4. There is no specific dateline, observe when the locals do. While no genuine truth seeker should be looking to the Ashkenazi Jews for anything, the fact that there is any debate at all among the self-styled rabbis is indicative of a larger problem. 5. The Patriarchs and Prophets. So, how did the Patriarchs and Prophets manage time? Are we to believe that the antediluvian men of Yah and the post-flood Patriarchs and Prophets used a zigzagging imaginary dateline in the middle of what is now the Pacific Ocean to determine when the Sabbaths and feast days arrived? This is truly absurd. Again, the modern dateline was created in 1884 by mere men for the purpose of worldly commerce. 6. Noah's descendants. Think about this for a moment. When Noah's family began to grow and replenish the earth after the flood, some would have travelled east and some would have travelled west. Eventually, the 2 groups would have met each other on the other side of the world. Now, consider this. If Noah's descendants were observing a continuous weekly cycle, they would have been 1 calendar day apart when they met on the other side. For example, one group would be observing the 6th day, while the other group would be observing the 7th day. The reason for this is that those who travelled east were travelling towards the rising sun, beginning their days earlier with each eastward movement, while those who travelled west were travelling towards the setting sun, beginning their days later with each westward movement. Consequently, when the 2 groups met on the other side of the world, those who had been travelling east would be 1 day ahead of those who were travelling west. So, who would be right? Whose calendar would have been correct? The answer? If they had been observing a continuous weekly cycle, they would both be correct, which is not possible. This again demonstrates the fallacy of a continuous weekly cycle, and it validates the importance of having a dateline that is governed by the heavenly bodies. Here are some questions to ask yourself.
If these ancient men and women of Yahweh were not using the modern counterfeit dateline to measure time, what were they using? And Elohim said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons or worship times, and for days and years." Genesis 1:14.
They were using the lunisolar dateline, which is established each lunation by the lights in the firmament of heaven. If erring men had not abandoned heaven's calendar and neglected Yahweh's feast days, the counterfeit dateline would never have been necessary. The man-made IDL is the result of open rebellion against heaven. Challenge for all Saturday Sabbatarians, teachers and pastors included.
How can you consistently observe a Saturday Sabbath without using the man-made international dateline?
You cannot. It is irrefutably impossible to use the Roman Papal Gregorian calendar without also using the man-made dateline, for it is this very line that tells you when to transition from one day to the next. It is this very line that tells you which days to reckon as holy and which days to reckon as common. This, perhaps, makes no difference to the institutionalized Sunday-keeping churches that teach lawlessness, but to those who are zealous for the things of Yahweh and who recognize the eternal value of His Sabbaths and feast days, this makes all the difference in the world. If we are to serve the Father without compromise, we must allow His word alone to distinguish for us that which is holy from that which is common. which is to say, we must use heaven's calendar and heaven's dateline to determine when the Sabbaths and feast days arrive, not man's counterfeit dateline that's only been zigzagging its way through the Pacific Ocean for the last 130 years. Now, we have a challenge for you. Ask your own questions. If you are a Saturday Sabbatarian, ask your pastor, how can we consistently observe a Saturday Sabbath without using the 130-year-old man-made international dateline? If he is honest, he will have to concede that it is impossible. The world simply cannot be united in observing a Gregorian day and/or date without using the international dateline. The question that logically follows then is, how can Saturday be heaven's ordained seventh-day Sabbath? There is simply no way around it. If the day matters, then the method used to calculate the day matters too. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot say that the seventh-day Sabbath is of the utmost importance to our Father in heaven, while also saying it is acceptable to let worldly men determine when the seventh-day Sabbath begins and ends via the international dateline.
So I hope you see what the problem is here. Like, the Lord is bringing this light, is bringing all of this information to us, telling us that there's a problem here. There's a problem with the Seventh-day Adventist logic regarding this whole Saturday, Sunday, and Saturday being the seal of God and Sunday being the mark of the beast, because it's Rome that's giving you the days. They are changing it. You know, God's Sabbath is not to be changed by man whenever it suits them for business goals. You know, I mean, it's ridiculous when you think about it. You know, the days and the weeks have changed, and God knows this. That's why he has put his calendar high in the sky so no man can tamper, no man can get lost. Everyone knows when it's worship. That's the sign. It's so beautiful, and it boggles my mind why Adventists can't see this, and they want to fight against this beautiful truth that's so clear that a child can understand. But because of preconceived ideas and them following the traditions of man and holding on to Ellen White, a fallible woman, they don't want to see this truth. And many are waking up to this and seeing this, and the Adventist church is just looking like a joke. I was told that they presented this issue of Samoa to Ted Wilson, the president of the Seventh Adventist Conference, and he said that let them work it out themselves. They know. Let me tell you, your theologians know this is nonsense. They're just taking your money and taking your tithes, you know, and getting rich of themselves, giving to you a false lying gospel. This is so clear, friends, that a child can understand it. Saturday, an arbitrary date given to you by Rome that changes whenever it suits fit, cannot be the Sabbath of the Most High. It cannot be. It makes no sense, you know. But for those who are still hanging on to this idea, you know, please, all these 3 points I've highlighted, these issues, present it to me in video format addressing these issues, showing how Saturday can still be the Sabbath of the Most High, because I am seriously confused. I am seriously confused how this can work, how this can happen. So please spread this video around. I want this to go everywhere to your pastors, and I want these questions to be answered. And if these questions can be successfully answered, giving me a Bible and Bible alone, proving to me that Saturday, Saturn's day, a day that was once the first day of the week, you know, in Rome, how can that be God's Sabbath, Saturn's day? Produce your cause, show it to me in video, and whoever does this using the Bible and a concordance, you're getting 10,000 francs. This is Miss Lady Gracie's challenge to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. And please put it in video format on YouTube so everyone can see this. I am not trying to deceive anyone. I'm not lying here. I'm being sincere regarding this. I will give you 10,000 francs of my own money, not tithes, my own money, to the person who can produce all of the issues I have, showing to me that today is Saturn's day, is still the Sabbath of the Most High. That's all I'm asking. So those who made videos attacking me, Pastor Isaac Olatunde, Emmanuel, all of them, I want to see videos explaining this to us. And when you do this, I will remove my videos and I would apologize and I will give you $10,000, 10,000 francs. Also, I heard another pastor, so-called pastor, Jamal Sankey, also made a video about me and us who keep the lunar Sabbath, calling us loonies. I want to see his video regarding this subject as well. In his video that he did, I mean, someone sent it to me a week ago. I never even knew he did this video about a month ago. He's making the claim that he knows Miss Lady Grace, he knows Miss Lady Gracie. I would say, Jamal, I don't know you. I haven't spoken to you for 10 years. Yes, I met you through prophecy schools, through friends I know. Yes, I did a little interview with you, but I wouldn't go as far to say as you know me, as if we were friends. We never were. We just somehow met through prophecy schools. And if you truly knew me, if you truly was a brother, you would have contacted me and said, Grace, what's going on? Let me see what's going on. But no, they want to make videos, you know, they want to be seen as if they know what they're talking about. They want the clout and the attention, calling out my name. Oh, there's this fallen sister. Oh, there's this lost sister. Oh, please pray for her. This false sense of pity when all they're about is the views and the attention, and they want to be seen as the top dog, as if they know what they're talking about. I have no respect for these men because their character and their attitude shows to me they're not Christian. Because if I truly was lost, you know, and I was following a false doctrine, that's not how you treat someone. If someone is lost, going in the wrong direction, you contact them, you pray with them, you study with them. No, they want to make videos trying to expose me. And they're doing it just for their attention. And they lie as if to say that, oh, they care about your soul. It's not about that. That's not Christian. I would never do that to someone who I call a friend or someone who is an acquaintance of mine. How I came to the lunar Sabbath was someone told me that a friend of mine that I met online, that I was talking to online, had embraced the lunar Sabbath. I didn't go around making videos about him and blah, blah, blah. I went to the person, spoke to him, said, give me a Bible study. I want to understand this. And in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to debunk him. Saturday is always the Sabbath. But when he was presenting the same arguments I'm presenting to you, I was like, okay, I need to go back and study this. And I studied it for 6 months, did the research, and I was like, yeah, I believe you're right. This is the truth. So I began presenting it. You know, so there's no hidden agenda. Grace hasn't been planning this since she came to Adventism to take Adventism out. I am just a genuine seeker of truth. Truth is progressive, you know. And when someone presents to you new light, don't come with the attitude thinking, oh, I know it all, I know everything. Humble yourself and speak to the person. The Bible says, if any man thinketh he knoweth something, he knoweth nothing at all. And that is to forever keep us humble. And though I do believe the lunar Sabbath is so true, like I'll say 99.999% I believe it's biblical, I still have to just remember that I'm human and just be open to those who truly believe that I'm wrong. You know, so I want you that, you know, if you can sort of lift up that 1% and show to me that, Grace, you're wrong. This is it from the Bible. And whoever does that, I would thank you. I would apologize. I will remove my videos and you will get 10,000 francs and we can put an end to this issue. You know, because I want to know the truth. I don't want to deceive people. I don't want to be deceived. But the more I study this, the more I get convicted that this is the truth. You know, I really believe this is the truth. So please spread this video. I mean, take your time. Whether it's a month or two, this video is still going to be up there. I also urge that you check out all the videos that I've done on the subject, the playlist. You know, I think I cover every question, every argument people present about the lunar Sabbath. I've addressed it, and I believe I've addressed it biblically, not with my own interpretation or ideas. It's Bible and concordance. And I only ask that you do the same for me, for those who are holding on to this Saturday idea. And I thank you for your time, and I look forward to your video responses. Take care, and may God be with you. Bye-bye.